This is the Knitteratti podcast. I'm Bletchley from Knitteratti Designs, and thank you all so much for watching. I want to do, before I forget, just a little bit of housekeeping. Normally I respond to everybody who comments on these videos, but I've just discovered a few minutes ago, and this is why I'm kind of making sure that I get this in here now. There are actually a couple of comments there that I've missed this week because I haven't gotten any indication that they were there, basically, and I just kind of happened upon them. So for Flo, and also for, and I don't know how to pronounce your name, I'm sorry, your username, WT3, all the zeros and the 1. Guys, I'm really, really sorry that I haven't gotten back to you sooner. I actually just didn't know that they were there, and hopefully by the time you're seeing this podcast, I will have responded to you. But I realise that you guys watch every week, and I really, really appreciate it, and I don't want you to think that I was just ignoring the messages. I didn't know that they were there. So, apologies again, I'm so sorry, because I don't like it if people think that I'm just taking for granted that they're watching and they've commented. I'm not. So there we go, that's my little panic out of the way. Okay, so this has been a weird week, I suppose, a little bit. You know, we've had stomach upsets with the puppies, but the biggest thing that's happened is, I don't know if anybody saw the pictures that I put up on social media, a bird got into my chimney. Of course, I didn't realise that, and I heard this banging coming from upstairs. What I now know was the bird inside the chimney trying to make its way out, and yeah, typical me. So if you've watched any other episodes of this podcast, you'll know I have a tendency to embarrass myself. You know, I know I was the only person there at the time, so I don't really need to be embarrassed, but I'm going to share it with everybody anyway. Yeah, I was convinced that there was somebody upstairs, so naturally I armed myself and took off in search of the intruder. Thankfully, I called my husband before I called the guards, because I figured, you know, he'd help me hide the body. And yeah, it was, I'm kind of sorry that I didn't record it so that you could hear it, but it is a very nervous me screaming at this so-called intruder to to leave. I know that you're there. You need to leave now before I catch you. All the while sobbing, naturally, as this was going on. So yeah, that was my bit of excitement this week. I don't know if I should share stuff like that, but I figured, you know, if I'm not going to share it with you guys, who am I going to share it with? But anyway, on with the knitting. Oh, also, before I forget, I did launch the Midsummer Shawl last Friday. Yeah, it was last Friday. And I just want to thank all of you who've supported me with that. I really appreciate it. And if anybody needs any help or anything like that, by all means, definitely contact me straight away. For anybody who was asking about the yarn that was used, you will see it in previous podcasts. It is Skein Queen, and the base is in twine. I don't think that there was an actual name on the colourway, but if you did want to contact them, I'm sure that they can put you in the direction of a similar colourway. But the base is in twine, so I think that's probably the really important part. So yeah, that's for anybody who wanted to know. So, as you can see, I have a finished object of sorts. I finished a sock that you saw I had started last week. Now, this is knit on, there we go, this Lang Shawl superwash, and it's 50 grams. Thus far, I have to say I am a little bit disappointed. I think it's probably fair to say that it's likely my own fault, because I should have checked the meterage instead of just going by the grams. So I've finished one sock, and I figured, I know that I'm not going to get a full proper pair of socks out of it, so this is just an ankle sock. And it's the same size as the one that I got in, what's this? This is West Yorkshire Spinners. So they're knit identically, same heel, this is actually slightly longer because there's 2 rounds before I started the ribbing, between the heel and the ribbing on this one, whereas this one, is there a round? I think there was 1 round before I start the heel. But I weighed what was left, I hadn't even finished the first sock. I was just at the end of the heel, and I wanted to estimate how far up I could bring it. And there was only 22 grams left at that point. So it looks as though I won't even get a pair of short socks out of this, which is disappointing because, I mean, it's not, yes, it is a man's sock, but it's not huge. Kind of looks huge when I'm doing it this way, but he has average size feet. It's not like a massive sock. It's just, yeah, I would have expected to have at least gotten a pair of ankle socks out of it, which is why I wasn't too fussed about the meterage. I kind of figured that I'd have some left over because I wasn't doing the full pair. And I have to say it's a little bit disappointing because I've started the next sock and I'll persist with it to see how far I get. Yeah, this yarn, I actually don't mind it, but it does pick up every piece of fur in the house. So yeah, I've started the next one. I'll persist. I'll let you know how far I get with it. But I'm not going to get a pair of socks out of one of these. So even though I'm persisting for the sake of, being able to show, I think sometimes it works out better with the podcast like this if I can actually show. I'm sorry, I'm going to adjust my camera here. If I can show you how far I've actually gotten rather than just estimating it or whatever. So I'll persist. But I don't think that I'm going to get much further than kind of halfway through the heel, which is very unfortunate because with the socks that I knit here, it was a 100 gram ball. I got a pair of, sorry, I'll show you here. I should really give him these socks now that I've knit them. So I got a pair of proper socks with a bit of a leg and, a proper cuff. And I also got the short pair of socks, the ankle socks, out of 100 grams, which means that the ankle socks were less than 50 grams by a fair bit, I'd say. So yeah, the yarn weights are similar, but clearly this one I must be getting less meterage per gram. And like I said, I could have gone and checked that. I probably should have done. I'm going to chalk this up to my error. It's my error that I started knitting it, but I still think it's disappointing that I can't get, this is the same weight yarn. They're both fingering weight, I think some people like to call it sock weight. They're both the same. So I am disappointed that it's falling so much shorter than the other one. Not just that it's a little bit shorter. It's actually quite a bit shorter than the other one. Because like I said, I would have expected to have gotten at least a pair of ankle socks and had some left over. And I think if I was knitting with the West Yorkshire spinners, even with half a ball with 50 grams, I think I still would have finished a pair of ankle socks and had some left over. So I'll persist with it and I'll let you know how it goes. But I'm starting to wonder how well priced this really is compared to some of the other stuff. So I think we'll come back to that next week in terms of price, and I will compare it with how many of these I would need to buy compared to how many other balls for the price, if that makes sense. So yeah, disappointing, but however. Oh, and I didn't use as much on the second toe as I did on the first one because I'm just not sure that I'm going to have enough. Again, you can chalk that down to my error. I think I might just about get through the heel with it, but it's going to be tight. So yeah, this is where I've been keeping it so that I don't lose it. To pop it back into the sock. There we go. Okay, sorry if you noticed that there. We've just had a quick interruption. Anyhow, on with the podcast. So the spring into summer cal. Here we go. So I've made some progress on this from last week. Not as much as I would have liked. For the simple reason that if any of you again have seen on social media, I've gotten some new glasses recently and I've been trying to persist with them, but to be perfectly frank, I think they're the wrong prescription and I can't see a damn thing. Sorry for using I know some people don't like the use of that word, sorry, my apologies. Even now when I take my glasses off, like I used to always take my glasses off to knit because I don't need them for that, I just need them for distance. And even my close up vision is it's banjaxed at the moment, to be honest. So I have done some work on this, not as much as I would like. And the deadline, what is the deadline, this Friday or is it next Friday? For this cal, this is part of the Spring into Summer knit along, which you can find in the Knitteratti group on Ravelry. So I knew that I was probably going to end up extending the deadline anyway, because not everybody started on the first day by the time people got their yarn sorted and stuff like that, which is absolutely perfect. So I think I'm going to be extending it for myself as well, because I have 1, 2, 3, and I'm missing another 2 stripes. So I have to finish this section. There's another one of these. Then I have another lace section, and then finally a solid coloured section, and then the cast off. So I still have a little bit to do there. And of course, because, and if any of you don't knit lace or knit shawls, you might not realise this. When you start up at the beginning, like I can whip the start of this out in a few hours because the rows are nice and short. You know, I mean, you're starting off with like 9 stitches, I think, and you know, it grows quite quickly. But by the time you're all the way down here, I'll try and show you the length of some of these rows. So it's quite long, you know, so obviously it takes longer and longer to knit the rows every time. But the thing is, if you want something pretty, you kind of have to work for it. This is what I keep telling myself anyway, as I'm knitting, because I'm at the long row section on a lot of my projects right now. Yeah, so you can see they do get to being quite long. There's probably over 300 stitches on the needle at the moment. But yeah, my goal for this week is to at least finish this and get the next stripe in, as I'm calling it. It's the next linen stitch section. And if I can get a little bit of lace done on the other side of that as well, I'll be happy. And I think I would be happy to achieve that this week. So, and I think I spent a lot of time on this last week, and I don't want to bore you with the same thing over and over. I'm still on the first ball of this. I think this is drops lace, and I haven't used the first ball of it yet. And of course, with the contrasting colour, I've used hardly any. So I'd say I'll probably use, I might not even use 1.5 of these, because I mean, this is the beauty of lace weight. It is so thin that it goes forever. So actually, if you are ever looking for a project that, you know, you want some nice yarn, maybe some nice hand-dyed yarn, and you kind of want to enjoy it, you don't want to just, you know, some people prefer a longer project, basically, you know, so you're not just churning out stuff, you're actually sitting down and enjoying it and enjoying using the yarn and, you know, feeling how it works up and things like that. Even if you haven't worked with lace weight before, consider it. You know, I mean, yeah, it takes a little bit of getting used to use something that's so thin, but it's worth it, because for the price, it goes a long way. And as you can see, I mean, yeah, I could knock this out in a week if it was my only project. Am I seeing something there? I think it's just a shadow, sorry. Yeah, if this was my only project, yeah, I'd knock it out in a week, but you know what, that's my job, so I should be able to do that. But, you know, if you want a project that's going to last you a few weeks, but you don't want to spend the earth on some yarn, you know, you can even get some really nice silks and stuff like that in lace weight that aren't, I mean, if you were to buy enough to do a similar size project in even fingering weight, you would be doubling the cost. So yeah, I guess I would encourage you to consider it. I mean, if you haven't used it before, even buy some drops. you know, it's nice and cheap. I think this cost less than €4 for a ball. I don't actually have the ball band. I don't know what happened to that. I will show you a ball band hopefully next week when I've started in on the next one of these. But yeah, it's like for €4, you could pick it up, try it, and sure, if it doesn't work out, you're not out that much. You know, it's probably worth the €4 to experience something different and to give it a go. Also, this stuff frogs beautifully. So as you can see, I've had this. This was in a different project. Not even a different project. I was kind of swatching and doing a bit of experimenting. And it's fine. Apart from the dog hair. Sorry. So yeah, you can see there's no problem with it. It hasn't gone fuzzy or anything like that. Yeah, try and get this to get it to focus a bit more. Clearly my camera is having none of it. I'm really sorry, guys. I am putting aside a portion of what's coming in through Patreon. Some of it is going on items to show on the podcast, but some of it is going to one side to hopefully get a decent camera and maybe some lights at some point. There we go. So you can see, even though I've frogged it, and that little bit of fuzz that you're looking at there is actually more dog hair. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. I know some people have very kindly told me that they're okay with the dog hair, which is good because there's a lot of it in this house. But yeah, I've actually, I think I've knit the end of this maybe 3 or 4 times, and it has frogged very nicely, and that is kind of one of my requirements for yarn. I know most people think, oh, I'm going to knit and that'll be it, that'll be my project and I don't have to pull it out. No, one of my requirements is, can I pull it out and what does it look like? I mean, there are some yarns, for example, mohair. I have knit with mohair. I do enjoy mohair. I don't buy it with the idea that I'm going to frog it, because that would just be like so difficult, such a difficult thing to do. But for a lot of the yarn that I buy, it is one of my considerations. Can I frog it? But there we go. I seem to spend an awful lot of time on this, talking on this project during the week, and I do hope that you're getting something out of it. I do hope that I'm not boring people. There we go. So there's that one. I still have another couple. Okay, I have one more that you've seen last week, and then I do have a new project to show you. So this is my, I've dropped, you see, I normally drop this into the middle of the project so it works like a little bag. There we go. This is my Manos del Uruguay project. Again, it's lace weight, although if anybody did decide that they want to knit this once the pattern comes out in a few months, you will be able to knit it with a fingering weight, should you want to. I just wanted something a little lighter and more airy. So you may notice that I've changed up the needle to a much longer cable, and also I still have all of the stitches crammed on here, and that is because I am now onto the edging. Okay, sorry, I'll stop moving it now for a minute. So yeah, I've done the middle lace, the middle lace, stockinette the same as the middle lace. Then I did another stockinette section, and then I decided that even though I think at that point I was about halfway through my cake, and I'd say I'm about 2/3 of the way through it at the moment, I wanted to start into the edging. And the reason for that is I decided to put a ruffled edging on it. And of course that means that you have to increase the number of stitches that you're working with considerably. So I think I have approximately 3 times the stitches on the needle now as I did at the end of the stockinette section here, so that I'll get that nice ruffle, obviously, at the edge. Come on, Linkle. Think about what you're saying. I have used a ruffled edge before. It was a much more lightly ruffled edge on the Riparian Picnic shawl. And people seem very confused about why all of a sudden the stitches increase. Well, if you actually stop and think about it, that is how you get a ruffle. Like if I took a piece of fabric, okay, I'll just come back to this for a second because I have it here, and I wanted to create a ruffle out of it, I would be folding the fabric to ruche it at the top to create this ruffle underneath. So in order to knit a ruffle on as edging, you take one stitch, and then to get that gathering, you make several stitches out of one. So that's why when you want to knit a ruffle, you do increase your stitch count very, very quickly. So if any of you do want to give it a go, even if you just want to, you know, do a little swatch, say you cast on 10, we'll say 20 stitches, knit however much in stockinette or garter or whatever makes you the happiest, and then triple the number of stitches that you have, and then knit a little further, you'll see that tripling the number of stitches will have created a nice little ruffle for you. So that's something to try if you're sitting down this afternoon or whenever you're watching this and you just want to give a new technique a go, something different. That's definitely worth it, because even though I don't like ruffles on my clothes, so I know a couple of years ago it was a trend, you know, to have the ruffle on the end of your dress and things. Yeah, I really don't like ruffles on the end of my dress. I don't know why. Or the ones that go from your shoulder across the centre of the body down to the hip. That doesn't suit me either, and I don't know why, but I'd never taken to it. But I do enjoy a nice ruffle on a shawl. So I figured I may as well go for it. And as you can see, I'm just using a very, very simple fishnet pattern just for the edging. Because honestly, there's enough stitches there. We don't need to make it complicated. Also, the beauty of knitting the edge straight on like this, instead of, often when you knit an edge onto a shawl, and again, just because this one is here and I have an edge that I can show you. So, which way did, okay. So you've knit, actually, sorry, right, this is the edge of your shawl, so these are your live stitches. So oftentimes, instead of knitting the border straight on like that, you'll turn the needle so that you're knitting the border over and back this way. And at the end of every second row, you pick up a live stitch, and then you knit across and back, and then you pick up a live stitch. So you might actually be knitting a border that's 10 or 20 stitches wide, and just every second row you're including one of these. You know what, I might do a tutorial on that at some point. Not today, but today we're doing bobbles. Yeah, just to make that clearer, because the knit on edge, I think a lot of people find it very intimidating, and I can see why. I think the first time I did it, I probably found it quite intimidating, but it's not actually that bad. Well, as with all things in knitting, if you just take your time with it and give it, you know, give yourself a little breathing room, acknowledge maybe this isn't going to work, but I'm going to sit down and I'm going to try it, and if I have to pull it out, sure, what harm? You know, I think we can, you know, after the first time you do it, you can achieve it very easily after that point. It's just it's just getting over that hump, really. So, there we go, back to this. Yeah, the beauty of knitting it straight on like this rather than turning to the side and going round is that if you knit on your edging sideways, as I've been describing, and you run out of yarn, and you're only halfway through, then you only have half an edging. You know, that's it, you're stuck. Your shawl has half an edge and you're not going any further. With this, knitting it on this way means that if I get halfway through the edging and all of a sudden I run out of yarn, I can just cast off. And I still have an edge that goes all the way around my shawl. You know, it doesn't get halfway around and then stop. I'm already working it all of the way around. And to be honest, it makes it a little bit easier to design as well. Although I think I will soon enough be doing a shawl with the knit on edging, knitting it on sideways. So I will do a tutorial then at that point. That would make sense, yeah. But yeah, this is basically where this project is. At the moment I have well over 1,000 stitches on the needle. And again, it comes back. Sorry guys, don't know what happened there. My camera just decided to cut off. Maybe it was offended at all of the dog hair. There's actually quite a bit this week because my puppies have been sick, so they've been curled up against me as I've been knitting. I've basically, the two of them like to curl up when I'm on the bed upstairs, so I've spent an awful lot of time this week sitting in bed just so that the two of them can have some comfort. But it means that their fur is literally all over me and all over my knitting. Yeah, I think I've covered this one. Yeah, I think that's enough on this for this week. Oh, that's right, I was saying I have over 1,000 stitches on the needle, so even though it looks like I haven't made a lot of progress on this since last week, because I had started this stockinette portion, I think, and then moved on to this. What I've actually done is first of all worked out what the edging was going to be, because I didn't know, I hadn't quite decided, was I going to knit on the border sideways or what? And also, I mean, every round, if I'm doing 1,000 stitches every round, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's over 6,000 stitches just on the edging that I've done there, which does take quite a while. Totally worth it though. If you want something that's pretty, I mean, the thing is, you love it when you're starting into it. This is what I find, you really love it when you're starting to knit it. And then you're knitting the same thing for so long that you're kind of like, getting a little bit bored of this. But it's worth it at the end, and that's what I do. I try to keep my eyes on the prize, as it is, or as they say. You know, I kind of think about where I'm going to wear it, what it's going to go with. I see myself out drinking coffee. I see myself having dinner. Is it going to go with this? Is it going to go with that? And that's how I keep myself motivated to keep going when I have that many stitches on the needle and I'm just going round and round. It does also help that I've picked a deliberately simple pattern for the edging, so I can watch whatever I want, and you know, it's just fishnet. So knit two together, yarn over. It's not that difficult. You know, I don't need to pay that much attention to it. So yeah, there you go. Okay, on to a new project. You would think that I would have the sense not to cast on anything else until I had finished off some of these. But you may recall last week I was telling you about the Knit One Post One that was going on for Bletchley Park. They were looking for donations. I think they've actually gotten so many offers for donations now that that is closed. I still think that if you ever get the opportunity, you should totally go and visit Bletchley Park. It's amazing, and by the time they have all of this knitwear, by the time they have all of this knitwear in there, it's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to go and see all of this. I mean, it's going to be months away before all of this is done, but I am hoping to go over and get some footage of what other people have done and, you know, things like that. So even if you can't make it over yourself, I will be doing my best if I can, as long as they're okay with that at Bletchley. You know, I'll do my best to keep you up to date with that. So I finally picked a pattern. This is ice yarn with the obligatory dog hair. If you haven't ordered from Ice, you order online. I think it's Yarn Paradise or something like that. And you have to order an awful lot of yarn to make the shipping worth it. But the yarn is really quite cheap, so it's kind of worth it. Obviously, well, maybe not so obviously, you know, I'm not really in a position to use an expensive yarn and then be able to give the project away. So this is perfect for it. I actually did get this yarn for myself, for a jumper or sweater. So I'm not using a cheap yarn that I wouldn't have used for my own purposes, if you know what I mean. Like, eventually I will replace this yarn and I will knit myself something out of it. And I also have it in other colours. And I will knit stuff for myself with it. So I definitely wouldn't shy away from it. I think if you have the budget and you're okay with the shipping and how much you have to pay, it's worth taking a look at ice. It's not high-end yarn. Okay, I'll tell you that now. It's not your hand-dyed, with a high twist, and that's not what you're getting. But that's also not what you're paying for. So this was probably less than €1 for a ball. I've had this for so long in my stash, I don't know how much was paid for it. But I do know that I don't think that I've ever paid more than a euro ball from Ice Yarns. So yeah, it's worth trying if you're looking for something cheap. If maybe you're saying, well, I'm knitting so much and I can't really afford to keep supplying yarn for that, this is worth a go. So just taking a look at what I have in my hand here. This is a single ply merino. I'll just see if I can, see if I can get the focus a little bit more, because I'd like you to see. Oh, come on, sorry. Maybe if I take this out of the way. Because that's what it's focusing on, is the stuff behind it. There we go, that's a bit better. There. Now you see that halo there? For once, that is not dog hair. It does have a halo. The twist is quite light. Honestly, there are parts where I would say the twist is non-existent. But it does what it says on the tin. It is merino. It is a real animal fibre. There is a huge range of colours that you can pick from. I normally go onto the sale section and see what I can get in there. So yeah, if you're not expecting the earth, this is definitely worth trying. And like I said, if I'm making cardigans and stuff for myself, where I want to wear them and I don't want to have to be too prissy about keeping them perfect and things like that, because the yarn was so expensive, I think it's worth it for something like that. So yeah, for the stuff for clothes that I'm making for myself, as opposed to shawls and stuff like that, things that I need to wash regularly, I'm either going to use acrylic or I'm using stuff from Ice Yarns. So there you go, that's my review on them thus far. Okay, so this pattern, now I had to pick a genuine 1940s pattern, and this is what I've gone with. I think this pattern is called Pamela. I couldn't get too much information on it because literally all that I can find are scans of it. I can't find the original. Now, to be fair, I'm saying I can't find it. I didn't look that hard because I found a pattern and I was too excited and I just cast on. But I think that this was probably in a magazine at some point during the 1940s, and it has both bobbles and, I suppose technically it's lace. It's really just an eyelet pattern rather than a proper lace pattern. And of course the eyelet pattern then creates a chevron, so you kind of getting 3 for 1. It's a good bang for your buck. Now I'll just see if I can zoom out a little here, and by zoom out of course I have to move my camera to try and show a bit more of it. So with 1940s patterns or vintage patterns in general, you expect to knit them in parts. So this is going to be the front of the jumper, then I'll knit the same for the back, and then the sleeves will be done separately, obviously. The reason for that, I think, is because circular needles probably weren't that popular then. They were probably difficult to come by, so the idea of knitting your sweater in the round, not really gonna happen. The other part of that is, when you knit a sweater in parts and you seam it, those seams create structure, and a lot of the clothing in this time, they were structured. So if you just think about the underwear that these ladies would have been wearing underneath their knitwear, it was all about the not corsets but girdles, I suppose, and pulling everything in and what have you, and it does create a fantastic shape. I mean, it's not for everybody. I certainly did go through a phase of wearing similar underwear at some point, and clothes do look better over it, I have to say. It's too much hassle to do for every day, but if you haven't done it before and you have access to something like that, it's a little bit of fun. Give it a go. So you can see at the bottom I've done my ribbing, and there is quite a bit of ribbing. And again, that comes back to the shape of the clothes then. They were very nipped in at the waist because they weren't hiding any ripples or anything like that. They weren't trying to hide any bulges like I certainly would be if I was knitting for myself today. So the idea was to accentuate, how shaped that was, basically. And I think that a really nice way to do that is to use quite a deep ribbing. And it seems to be characteristic of quite a number of patterns from that period. So yeah, it's a lot of 2x2 ribbing, I will say that. I think it's totally worth it for the effect that you get in the end. But I'm not looking forward to knitting the back of it because I have to do 40 rows of ribbing again. But I think it will be worth it in the end. When it comes to the pattern, I'm quite happy with it. It's easy enough to keep, I don't need to keep looking back at the pattern all the time. But I think it's very effective. This kind of light and airy thing that it's going for. And like I said, you're getting some eyelets, some bobbles. You're kind of getting a bit of everything in there. So that's what attracted me to this. It's also the first time in a very, very long time that I've knit from a pattern, and it's really nice. I can just sit there and knit, and I don't have to go, okay, I need to take a note on this, and I need to, make sure that I've counted my stitches, and, I can just sit there and go. So it is pleasant for me. It's a pleasant change. So this is what I've started this week, and I'll keep you up to date with it because obviously we'll be looking at techniques like seaming because these pieces will all have to be seamed together. So yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy some updates on this. There you go. You know what? I was about to say I think that's all I have for this week. This is not all I have for this week. When I was in getting my new glasses that I now have to return last week, and this place. Okay, I think it's in Blanchardstown Centre, if any of you happen to be there, and I think it's called Sisters Green. When you're actually there, like when you see what's written up, I think it is actually Sisters Green, the English version of this. And I went in, and it was like, I don't know if any of you have ever been to the Tiger shops, where they have a lot of stuff, kind of different knickknacks and things like that. So I went in and I wasn't expecting to find any crafty stuff, but they actually do have a lot of crafty items. Now, I was somewhat good and I did not buy any yarn, even though they had some. So I'm thinking if I go back, I might pick up a few bits. Not that I need it. Let's see what I did buy. You know what? Dump all of this out. Okay. So I got, and I think the prices are all on these, so there we go. You can see the euro price here. So 126, or if you're sterling, 122. I'm afraid they don't have the dollar amount on it. Oh, they do have a website. Look, if anybody wants to go to the website and check out what they have there. I haven't been on the site, but you might see something you like. So yeah, this is elastic. And I got this because I might put it in the socks should I need it. Should I find that they are falling down. I mean, it's thick, but I'm actually okay with that. It is some of the thinner stuff that I found in a shop over here. I don't know why. I have difficulty finding suitably thin elastic to put into my socks, because normally the stuff that I can find is like, the ribbon elastic, and it's quite flat and wide. So that's why I picked this up. Okay, this is a little pillbox. I will explain why I bought this now in just a minute. 164. Only 164. That is pretty darn cheap, I think it's fair to say. yeah, I'll just take it out of the pack. I actually left everything in the package so that I could show you with the prices written on it, because other than that, I would forget what I paid. So I thought, you know, for, you don't need to, yeah, okay. There's my t-shirt. I don't think you can really see me. There's the camera. Yeah, okay. You know, little beads or, you know, any small notions that I might have that I might want to put into just a little notions pouch, but I don't want them kind of loose at the bottom of the bag. As you know how if you're, well, maybe it's just me, but if I was using beads on a shawl and I was going somewhere, I knew I was going to be sitting down, I would have time to do the beading. You know, say if you're going to a friend's house or something like that, but you don't necessarily want to bring the whole container, because if you drop them, it's the whole container. Something like this, I think, is pretty handy. So I like to have items like that to stick into my notions pouch. And to go with it, I don't know that I have ever seen, actually, you know what? I probably have seen them in shops over here. This particular type of stitch marker, okay? But they only cost €1.08, which for over here is particularly cheap. You know, I know you can go on eBay and you can get like 100 of them for €1 and you can wait 6 weeks for them to arrive from China. But it was just really, really nice to be able to pick up a set for only €1.08. I couldn't leave them there for that. So I also picked up a spare set of scissors. They're not the prettiest scissors. I know that there are some really fancy, gorgeous scissors out there that people are buying now. This cost €1.11. I could not leave it there for €1.11. That, and I have a tendency, like if I had a set of pretty scissors, I would leave that sitting out in my craft room. It would never make it into a project bag or into a notions pouch or anything like that. So this, you know, small, serviceable, will fit in most places fairly easily. And for only, was it €1.11? I wasn't going to leave that there. And then finally, we have the needle gauge. Oh look, I've just noticed the ruler is there. I didn't realise that, well duh, I really wasn't looking at it properly, was I? 124. Again, you can pick these up in a lot of places, but 124 for this country is pretty cheap. So I was very, very happy to pick that up. And honestly, I might pick up another few because they're the sort of thing I think my current one, I've misplaced my metal one. My Knit Picks one is in the games room. And the next time I go looking for it, I'm going to go to the crafting room and it won't be there and I'll have to work out where did I leave it. So I think I'm actually probably going to buy more of these the next time I'm in. Just to be able to leave them in a few different places. I know that sounds weird. I know I should just put it, like I will put them in the project bag. But I found that, like, if I haven't taken the project out of the house, it's not necessarily in a bag. You know, I'm new to project bags and I don't necessarily have huge numbers of them and I don't necessarily have them very well stocked. But I think having found some of these items at the prices that they're now available at, you know, I think I probably will pick up a few more. So there we go. I also bought, and I don't have it here because I've used it, they have these little bags of tea. They're one something, again, they're probably like 110 or something like that. And they have a selection of loose leaf teas and you just fill your bag. You know, I mean, it's a small bag, so it means that you're not buying a huge amount of tea and you don't know if you're going to like it or not. So I did also get some tea there and I think it was, what was it? Rhubarb and ginger. And it was actually quite nice. So yeah, if you happen to come across one of these stores or if you want to check out their online store, I presume that there's an online store, there is a website. I'll just show you that again. I think it's definitely worth it. So there you go. Okay, I think that is it this week for, no, it isn't. I'm sorry guys. I have one more bit. People who watch the podcast regularly will have heard me speak about my friends, the Murrayfields, and specifically Mrs. Murrayfield, who I got the bookmark for a while ago. I know that I showed that on here. Her son, Tony, who was a school friend of my husband's, and we're still good friends, and he comes and stays with us and plays with our dogs, and we all have great fun. He showed up with these for me at the weekend, just randomly. He was like, yeah, I went into this random shop, there was yarn, I bought it. He's such a good friend to have. So you can see he got me 2 balls of this. It's acrylic. As I've said before, I am very happy to use acrylic for stuff that I need to be hard wearing, and he knows this. He has also bought me silk and cashmere and stuff like that before. Like I said, a good friend. So he paid €2 a ball for this, which it's not a bad price at all. It's as cheap as you're ever going to get it. So just from squeezing it here, okay, that noise you're hearing is the band against the yarn. It doesn't squeak, which is the one thing I am a little bit snobby about when it comes to yarn. I don't want it to squeak. And some acrylic does. I didn't believe it until I came across it myself. I had heard people say acrylic is squeaky, and I went, no, these people are mad, clearly. But no, quite a few years ago I was desperate. I needed to make something quickly for a gift, and I picked up this yarn. And again, I wanted acrylic because I knew this person was going to throw it in the washing machine. They weren't going to care. They weren't going to hand wash it. So I picked up some acrylic, and it was squeaky. That went, I won't say it went in the bin, but it was repurposed, shall we say. So yeah, it's squishy. It's good. I love the colour. The colour it's not coming across too badly here, but it is such a deep, almost a royal blue, which I really, really love. And that's actually, it's something that he's learned, I think, from gifting me yarn. I don't care what kind of yarn he gives me, but I like that he picks the colours, and it's the same for anybody who buys me yarn. I really like that they pick the colour and go, I thought this would be, either I thought this would be great on you, or I thought this would go with this other thing that you have, or whatever. That's really the thing about gifting for me. I like to know that people put a little bit of thought into it. I don't really care how much they've spent on it. It's more that, this is great. He walked into a shop, he saw it, and he said, oh, Linkle, she'd really like that. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get that for her because I know she'll like it. How sweet is that? Fantastic. Much better than gifts that people give you because they have to give it to you. You know what I mean? Like Christmas and stuff like that, and people have to give you gifts. We're not big on that in this house. But yeah, I don't know what this is going to be yet. I asked him what he thought, and he said he saw it as something that would be up near my face. So I think this is probably going to be a cowl at some point. And because it's something that I can throw in the wash, it'll probably be something that I can wear to the dog park. So nothing too lacy, but maybe a cable or something like that on it. Not really sure yet. But yeah, that is actually, yes, they are the same dye lot. The thing is, I think he's been around me so much, I think he does know to check the dye. We have some really good friends, I have to say. We are very blessed in that regard. So yeah, that's it for this week. That is everything that I was going to show. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to cover bobbling, or knitting bobbles, in the technique section. If you're not interested in that and you're going to leave us here, thank you so much for watching for this long. I do really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to sit down and spend some time listening to me rabbit on. I do hope that you're getting some enjoyment out of it, and if there's anything that you do want to see, definitely message me. As I said, I had a problem this week. I didn't get back to everybody as quickly as I would have liked, or as I would normally do, but please don't be put off. Clearly I'm having issues getting my notifications, so I will check in more regularly even without the notifications next week. And if you've enjoyed what you've seen, if you could please like and subscribe, that would be a huge help to me. So just underneath the video, you must be watching this on YouTube, I think. I am going to try to get this podcast out on other platforms, but for the moment, you're watching this on YouTube. So just underneath the video there, you'll see the little thumbs up and a subscribe button. So if you could click on those, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much. For those of you who are joining me for the bobbling, or for knitting bobbles, I shouldn't say for the bobbling, because you can get bobbling on your knitwear. Yeah, for bobble knitting, I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, we're back. So, as I've said, this week we are going to do bobbles. So just to recap with an example, you see these little nubbly bits here? These are bobbles. So we're not talking about the slubby bits that you get on your jumpers after you've worn them for a while. We're talking about the deliberate little nubs that you create in your knitting. So, as you can see here, I just have a little swatch, and I'll go ahead and create a couple of bobbles on the front here. So I'm just going to knit to the spot that I want to be at. Just get it back into focus there. Okay, so this stitch I'm going to turn into a little bobble. So in order to do that, we begin by taking one stitch, and in this case I'm going to turn it into 5 stitches. Okay, there are a number of ways of doing this. I'm only going to show you one way, because other than that we'd be here all day. So you might find a way that you prefer to do yourself. But basically the idea is that you take one stitch, you increase, and then you decrease, and that is what creates the bobble. So take your one stitch, and I'm going to turn it into 5. You might prefer to turn it into 7. It's up to you. So there's 1. Bring it around. 2. Bring it around. 3. Bring it around. 4. Bring it around. 5. Okay? So you can see I've really stretched that stitch, and I've gone into it 5 times and created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches out of that one. Okay? Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn. And then we're going to knit those 5 stitches. Okay? So just bring your yarn into the right position for knitting, and then literally just knit 5 stitches. 1. Now, because I did a purl as I was creating the stitches, some of these are twisted, so I'm just going to knit into the back of the loop. Just make sure you can see that there. Try moving that out of the way. Okay, so I'm knitting the second stitch into the back of the loop. So there's 2, 3, 4, and again I'm going to knit this into the back of the loop. Now the way to know if you're going to knit it into the front or the back of the loop is basically which way does the needle go in more easily. To be honest, it doesn't matter. I could knit this normally and the bobble would still work. It would make very little difference. So don't get hung up on that part of the process, just go for it. So there we go. I've just knit the 5 stitches. So you can see I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now I'm going to turn again. So if any of you haven't come across turning your work before, when you see it in a pattern it says turn, it literally means turn. Because the first time I came across bobbles, it was in an old-fashioned written pattern, and I was quite young at the time, and I was like, huh? Because I hadn't come across this idea of turning your work in the middle of a row before. You can see there are the 5 stitches, and now I want to turn the 5 stitches back into 1 stitch again, so that would mean casting off 4. So I'm going to knit 2 stitches, and then cast the first one off. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Sorry, the focus has gone on this again. There we go. So there's 4 cast off. So you can see I took 5 stitches, I knit a row, and then I turned the 5 stitches back into 1 stitch. You can see it's quite loose here where I've done that, but we're not going to worry about that for right now. Okay? Well, actually we are going to worry about it a little, because when I knit the next stitch, I'm going to tighten this up. Now to do that, there's no point in pulling the yarn now, okay, because it's not going to do anything. If you want to tighten, like knit 2 stitches together tightly, you want to bring the yarn around the needle, then tighten. See how that made a difference? See how it really made that bobble sit up? So do that again. See, we have loose bobble. So I go to knit the next stitch. I make sure that that bobble is out in the front, by the way. Sometimes they can sneak around the back on you. So make sure that the bobble is out in the front. Bring your yarn around, then tighten, and knit the stitch. And I'm going to hold that just a little bit tight, so I'm just using my finger to tension it a little until I knit the next one. Okay? There you go. So I'm just going to do the bobble again to let you see. Sorry, I'm just adjusting myself here to I can see through the camera better. So I'm taking one stitch and I'm making 5. Okay, so you can see I now have one stitch on my right needle. I have not dropped the stitch off my left needle. So there's one stitch. If you wanted, you could go in through the back of the loop and do it that way, but I'm just going to show you one way to do it just to be consistent. So there's 1, bring the yarn around to purl, in again, 2, bring the yarn around as though to knit, 3, so I still have the same stitch on my left needle, bring the yarn around again as though to purl, 4, bring it around again as though to knit, 5, and then I drop the stitch off my left needle, okay? So that means that I've increased from 1 stitch to 5 in that 1 stitch. You see how big a gap that is? See how it's disappeared over here? So don't worry about this being gappy, it's fine, it'll sort itself out, okay? So again, we turn the work. I'm just releasing some extra yarn here. Okay, so we turn the work and I want to knit, so I bring the yarn through the needles to knit, and I'm just going to knit those 5 stitches. Again, some of them are twisted, so you need to knit through the back of the loop. Don't worry about it, knit it however you feel comfortable. It doesn't make that much of a difference because it's going to be part of the bobble and it won't be that visible anyway. Sorry, that's the easiest way to knit that one. You know, you'd be surprised how much your hands move when you knit. I find it really difficult to hold them in one position so that the camera doesn't keep refocusing. Okay, so there's 5 stitches knit, and then I want to turn those 5 stitches back into 1 stitch again. Okay, so we turn, so the right side of the work is now facing again, and I'm going to turn, sorry, I'm not going to drop my stitches off the needle, I'm going to turn 5 stitches back into 1. So I knit 2, okay, and then I cast off 1, the next one, 2, there we go, knit the next one, 3, knit the next one, 4. Okay, so I have turned the 5 stitches back into 1 stitch again. And again, I'm making sure, you see sometimes they can pop behind like that. You don't want that. You make sure that it's popped to the front. We still have our gaps between the stitches. So when I knit the next stitch, I bring the yarn around and then I pull a little to tighten. And then just keep that tension there just until you knit the next one, and then that tension is locked in. You know, by the time you knit a couple of extra stitches, you've kind of locked that in a bit. And then I'll just knit the next couple of stitches to end the row. So that's the basics of it, but I am going to show you what we do on the row behind. I'll try for some focus again, because you can see we still have a gap here. And the same on the other side of this. So we need to tighten that up as well. So it just happens in what I'm doing, it's knit 2 and then purl across to the last 2 stitches. Okay. So I'm going to purl until I get to one of those gaps. Okay, so I have a bit of a gap here. So I want to purl this. And I want to keep a little bit of tension there, because when you keep a little tension there, it pulls those stitches together, okay? So there's my bobble. I'm making sure that the bobble stays at the front of the work. I'm going to purl the next stitch, and again I am keeping a little bit of tension there, you know, just to keep those stitches together. Oh, nearly there. Okay, there we go. So you can see those gaps are being removed. Again, I'm up to the next gap for the second bobble. So I'm purling this, and I'm just keeping a little bit of tension. I'm making sure that the bobble is at the front of the work. So I'm just push that down with your finger, make sure it's in the right place. Again, we have another gap here. So we just want to keep a little bit of tension on that. Okay? Purl this one. You can see here a little bit of tension has worked. The stitches are now sitting together nicely. And knit 2. Okay. So, there we go. Now, it would have been nice if I'd done those bobbles in a contrasting colour, thinking on it now. You might have been able to see it a little bit better. Sorry, just try and... So yeah, there's a close-up of your bobbles and what they look like. So they are just, you know, a little cast on, knit a row, cast off again, and that's all it takes. And you can see, because we've kept a little bit of tension then when we've knit the next row, there aren't any gaps. Those big gaps when we make 5 stitches out of one, they disappear. And there you have it. 2 little bobbles. Okay, so I think that's it then for this week. As I've said before, if you could please like and subscribe these videos, or like the videos and subscribe to the channel. I really, really do appreciate people doing that, because I mean, it's fantastic to see the number of people who are, you know, getting involved. It's great to see that grow. And like I said, I will do much, much better with getting back to people this week. So please do leave a comment, you know, if there's anything you'd like to see, if there's anything here that you didn't enjoy, that you don't want to see again, by all means do let me know. I really, really appreciate it, even what people might perceive as negative feedback. For me, I'm going to take it constructively, so do by all means tell me. I won't be offended. Okay, so I think that's it for this week. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end, and hopefully I'll see you all next week. Take care.